Let's start. Welcome everyone to our final webinar of the year 2024. Maximize your profits to win, an interactive proven model using. So today we have Tom from Vision to Estimating, or V2E, a company dedicated to delivering precise, customized building estimates for Australian residential projects, utilizing advanced 3D modeling to support builders in visualizing project costs and layouts. Their vision centers on elevating industry standards to best practice levels, promoting efficiency, accuracy, and cost effectiveness throughout the estimating process. Through detailed project insights and reliable bill of quantities, B2E aims to support the construction industry in achieving consistent excellence. So right over to you, Tom.
Awesome. No worries. Thanks for having me, Camille. Thanks to Wunderbuild for putting this on. Morning, everyone. I'm assuming it's still morning. It might be lunchtime for some guys, depending on time zones. It's nice to see some familiar names in the list here. So, please feel free to heckle as much as you want. It's okay. I'll be able to take it. And I'll just mention I've got Michael and Emma from V2E here with us as well, joining the meeting. So, great to have everyone. I'll just take over, and I'm going to start this morning with a little bit of a presentation, and then we'll go into going through a few things in Wunderbuild. So can you guys see that presentation on screen? Can somebody give me a confirmation that that's come up?
Yes.
Yep, cool. Awesome. No worries. Like I said, so today we're here to talk about pricing to win, an alternative estimating method. So I want to talk to you guys a bit about how we believe, what we believe is a really good way to estimate, to get detailed pricing, and to some ways to manage some pricing and to manage some data that you guys as builders have access to, but probably in the past have never had a solution to be able to manage and to be able to access and understand. But with the benefit of Wunderbuild, which we'll show you a bit later on, how you can sort of utilize that to its full potential. So start with a bit about V2E, a bit about us. So we are a contract estimating company, but where we've come from is we're based in Adelaide, South Australia. Over here in Adelaide, pretty much everything is stick-built carpentry walls, truss roofs, floor trusses. So we started our business based on doing very detailed carpentry, timber cutting lists and layouts, and producing that so builders can order. Down here, carpenters, they like to be handed things on a silver platter. They like to have specific plated lengths of top and bottom plates, and they get very fussy about things. So it means we've had to develop a very detailed framing technique. But what that's done for us is drummed in our idea for our business, which is creating a model or creating a drafted layout of everything that you need, and then being able to use that to produce a takeoff. So 2020, when we started V2E, we took that same mentality across the whole project. So why can't we create a model of the project, and then through the software that we use, export all the measurements and everything you need to be able to produce detailed takeoffs and measurements, which can then be turned into price items. So I'll walk you through the process a bit later on, but that's a little bit about us. Currently got about 20 staff members, all based here in Adelaide, and sort of service work all around the country for builders all around the country, and a couple of things interstate. You can see on the screen there's a QR code. If you want to scan that up, what that's going to do is bring up our 3D model portal, which will bring up this model that I've got a screenshot here of. And I'll walk you through the steps on how to use it, what we've got built into it, and then how that relates to takeoffs and stuff as we move forward. So where I wanted to start today is this idea about pricing from data. So talking to a lot of builders, and especially over the last probably 12 to 18 months, trying to understand how you guys price and how estimating can be so different between the way different businesses run and what that means. And lots of people are looking to outsource estimating because they need someone to be able to tell them what their job should cost. But then there's the battle of, well, the pricing that somebody else has given me, how does that match up to the pricing that I actually have between my data? I've got all this data from subbies, from materials. How do I control it? So the biggest thing I found is that builders have access to so much pricing data, but the biggest challenge is understanding how to access it, interpret it, manage it, and then use it to be able to price a job. Because in reality, the most accurate way to price a job is to know exactly what's required in the job, materials and labor, and then apply your specific pricing to it, because your rates that you have set up with your buying rates through buying groups, through your local suppliers, are going to be different to the next builder. The rates that you use with your subcontractors are going to be different to the next builder's subcontractors. The hourly rate you charge your team out at is going to be different to the next builder. So trying to take a pricing idea that somebody else tells you and then apply it to your specific business has never really made sense. But understanding how to capture all that data that you guys have access to, but how to manage it, use it, and access it in an easy way, that's what we're going to talk about today. So where that starts from is the key sources to get pricing information. So pricing information comes from 4 main sources across jobs. It comes from material pricing. That's everything you've got to buy to put into the house. So nails, cladding, timber, all that stuff. And all that is going to be able to come from your supplier price list, or rates that they give you to allow for, or invoices that you've paid, so you know what you last paid for, eve sheets when you bought them last. So you've got data on what material pricing is going to come from your supplier. Then you've got subcontractor rates. Now, some custom home builders are set up so that they don't really have their own employees, in-house carpentry teams to be doing the labour, so everything's subcontracted out. Some builders are a mixture between both. But most subcontractors work on some kind of rate setup. They'll work on a day rate. They might work on a square metre rate for their labour. They might work on a linear metre, a per item. So a concreter might work on meterage of strip footing, number of piers, square metre of slab area. They might work on the cubic metre. I know in WA, a lot of people we talk to, concrete is labour is based on the cubic metre that goes into the slab. But that's the other place you can start to build some pricing data, is from subcontractor rates, and also then trying to understand what's included in your subcontractor rate. Is it supply and install, or is it this rate up to this point? So is it this price for piers up to this depth, and then anything over that is a different rate? So understanding how your subbies are going to price you, and what that includes, is another important part. Then we have in-house labour costs, which is trying to break down all the tasks on a job, all the items on a job that your in-house carpentry staff are going to have to do, and how many hours to allow for that against, and then what the hourly cost is going to be. When I talk to custom home builders, the biggest thing they always say, if I have a blowout on price, it always comes down to in-house labour, because tracking in-house labour and then how to allow it is always something that's a bit wishy-washy. How do we do it? How do we do it easily? How do we account for things that come up on the job? How do we make sure we're kind of prepared? How do I turn the square metre labour rate I've come up with over the years into now timesheets or tracking hours for my guys on site? But that is another big place where you can find some of the pricing information, is what are you going to charge your guys at, and how long are you expecting them to be able to take to do those tasks? And then the other one is one-off PCPS items and allowances. So this has come up on the job. I need to get this quoted. I need to make an allowance for this because the client hasn't made a selection. This is an allowance we put in the job to handle this. So they're basically what I found are the main 4 places to be able to find your pricing data. So now we know where we're going to get the data, where we're going to get the pricing. How do we manage it well? Because the amount of builders we talk to that say, subbies has got me this rate sheet, but then I kind of use this to figure out the rates, and then they clarify it. I've got a price list for some things I get quoted. I've got to go and find it from this place. There's never been an easy way for a builder to be able to manage all of their pricing in one spot. But one of the things with Wunderbuild and the ability to hold price lists and then use the SKU codes and categories, which we'll go through with a demo at the end of the preso here, is you can manage your data like an inventory list. So if you think about Mitre 10 or your local timber supplier, they manage all their pricing on all their items like an inventory list. They have, this is the amount of stock that we're buying, this is the price we're buying it at, this is what we're selling it at, and this is how much we keep of it. So having the same idea of what needs to go into your job, this is how much I need of it, this is what I'm buying it, or this is how much it costs, this is how much it's going to cost inside my project via adding markup or sell rate or charge out versus what your real cost is. And then this is what it's going to end up costing inside the project. But having a place inside something like Wunderbuild where you can clearly see, right, this is where I can have all my items broken down. This is how I can track price rises by dates of costings, when they increase, when they're last edited, where I can go to a quick database that's easy to navigate to find all those items, and how I can then track them through my accounting software like QuickBooks Xero by using cost codes. How do I accurately manage what you need to measure each thing's priced in? Wunderbuild has a really easy setup in price list to be able to manage all those things as well. So that's how we can manage that, and we'll show you more of that real life data when we move forward. Interpreting the data. So interpreting all those pricing data and applying it at the right time is a really key thing, because what that's going to help you do is understand how you run your jobs. So understanding how you run your jobs is understanding what tasks are done by your employees, what tasks are done by a subcontractor. A bit like I mentioned before, if a subcontractor is doing it, what is the scope? Is it supply and install? Is it labour only? Do they supply X amount? Is machinery and plant hire on top of that, or is it included in the rate? How are they charged out? So understanding the data is going to help you apply it in the right instance and help you apply it at the right stage of your job and in your costing. Understanding the construction stage of the project is something really big that will help you interpret your pricing data. For instance, lots of guys probably in this have heard me give this example before, but block work is something I really love to talk about, because block work can be used at so many different stages throughout the job. You can use block work for retaining walls, then it might be used for slab build-up, then it might be used for undercroft or walls or structural masonry, then it can be used for landscaping walls. So if you just have all your block work costs tallied up into one section, how are you going to understand how much is it costing me for each stage? What stages do I need the blocky to come out? How many blocks and sundries do I need for each stage? What's the labour dedicated for one of my staff members to be there on site to help manage or to oversee while that's happening? So understanding the stage of construction of your project is going to help you apply that pricing data that you've already got. Because the pricing data, you know about what your blocky charges per block, what you're paying for your blocks, what you're paying for the sand. We've talked about you can get that from your material prices, from your subby rates. But now understanding how to apply it in the stage of the job is going to open your eyes and sort of help understand exactly what you're paying for each stage of that section. And then filling in all the holes in the data by finding the missing pieces. So the more you break your job down and try to apply a cost to each line item or to each section, is going to help show you which items you don't have pricing for, so you need to go and find them. Because even though, especially for custom homes, every job is completely different, inside of those jobs, the bones of the job runs the same. You still have materials you need to buy, cladding, timber, bricks. Even if they're slightly different, you're still going to buy those things, which then equal what the subcontractor's rate is going to be for those items, which then equals the tasks that your employees need to do and how you're going to track their hours. So the more you break your costing down and the more you try to apply a line item price to each of those items in your categories, the easier it's going to be able to see to go, oh, I actually need to find a price for this task, or I need to find a price to apply here, and I need to hold that and double check it. So sort of wrapping that up is using the data effectively and efficiently is to use the full potential of Wunderbuild to price with your data. So like I said at the start, the most accurate way to understand what your job is going to cost and how to price it is by knowing exactly what's required in your job. So materials, subcontractor rates, and labour hours, and then applying your pricing to it. Where are you going to find your pricing? From what we talked about, what you're paying for your materials, what your subcontractors' rates prices are, and what you charge out for your labour hours, and what your allowances are on each job or one-off item costs. what we'll show you now in Wunderbuild is how to understand the priceless function of Wunderbuild and build your own builder's price book. How do we understand using the cost codes and SKU functions in the process to then streamline how you can do estimating accurately through takeoff? How to understand the breakup of costing types so you can manage each of those costing types we talked about, and then how the process can help through sales, estimating, and construction can hit on all three of those points. So that's kind of a bit of the background of what I'm going to sort of show you through and do a bit of a demo on. And what I'll also do is talk about how we at B2E integrate with Wunderbuild and how our process kind of work through that. So I'm just going to jump over into Wunderbuild. So can you guys still see Wunderbuilds come up on the screen now? So does that come up for everyone? Yep. Cool. Thumbs up there. Awesome. Cool. So what I'm going to show you guys now is a bit of how I've got Wunderbuild set up and then how that works with what we at B2E do here. But the first thing I'm going to draw your attention to is in settings is price lists. So inside price lists, you've got the ability to import price lists from suppliers, from subbies, build price lists, things like that. But what I want to sort of encourage you guys to do is build what we call your own builder's price book, which is understanding all of the categories and the things that I allow for on a job by job basis, things that are always going to be currently across. So understanding what my concrete pricing is per cubic meter, understanding what I'm paying temp fence per meter or delivery setup. And these are, think of this process as the idea of what you're paying for, what you're allowing for when you estimate a job, when you quote a job. Now, one of the great things with Wunderbuild is the ability to, inside a price books, have categories. So it means you don't have to be looking at a full 5,000, 3,500 line item database. You can be looking at it through different sections. It's also this idea of a SKU code. So talk a bit about what SKU codes are. So the example I gave before about a tender and timber supplier. So all of their products are tracked through a SKU code, because the product being tracked through a SKU code and a number means that if product name slightly gets changed, something gets, one year it's called MGP 10 9035, and the next year the order comes out and it's called 9035 MGP 10. But if it's the same product, having a consistent SKU code number means you can still track the data around that item. Now, inside Wunderbuild, this gives us a really good ability to be able to hold and assign pricing to different items. So what you can do in here is, once you've got this data inputted into Wunderbuild and SKU coded and categorized, you can basically sit there and go through and type in your pricing of what you're allowing for each section. Now, where are you going to find those pricing? Well, it's what we talked about before. It's looking at back invoices of what you paid for items, looking at subcontractor rates, or talking to them about how they're going to charge it and how they're going to break things up. One really key thing about how Wunderbuild's set up with the price list is it's got this last updated date, which means that if you come in and update the price on something, it will update the price. It'll update the date item here to show you when the last updated date. So the idea being, when you get the invoices come in, you should be able to double check these and go, this is what I paid for it. Let me go back and check the last date I updated this. Yep, that price matches up. I'm on track. So the next job I'm estimating at my correct pricing. Now, the other key thing with the SKU codes is having a system that you can understand. So at B2E, we've built our pricing database, or our item database, with SKU codes in a 3-tiered system, because for us, that helps us order things in terms of items, category they go in, and stage of the job. But also builds consistency, because all of our SKU codes, they aren't random SKU codes for that subcontractor, random SKU codes for that subcontractor, and a huge mess of different codes, letters, things that you've got to be able to manage. Having a systemized SKU code set up is going to help you track and help VAs, help admin staff go back and understand what they're looking at. Now, the way the SKU codes work and where they really come into its own is, I'm going to go into estimations. So I've got a dummy job, a blank job open up here called Wunderbuild Prezzo for today. It's got no items in it yet, but what I'm going to be able to do is show you how you can import a takeoff, and I'm going to show you V2E takeoff, what we do, and how the SKU codes with the V2E takeoff work and how they streamline it because they read the price book data. So first I'm going to go import spreadsheet, come in here, and I'm going to find my, come in here and go Wunderbuild takeoff. Basically what I'm coming here is come and map where I want the data in my file to end up in Wunderbuild. So category to category, SKU code to SKU code. So this is the key one to look at. Description to costing item, note to note, quantity to quantity, unit measure to unit measure. Now, before I import that, what I want to show you guys is the actual file that I'm about to import is a CSV takeoff that has category, SKU code, description, note, quantity and unit measure, but there's no dollar values in the takeoff at all. It's purely a takeoff of items categorized and item code. So if I import this now, when Wunderbuild imports this, see how some pricing has been applied here, even though the import that I brought in hasn't got any pricing? Because what Wunderbuild has done is it's recognized that some of these items are matching a SKU code. And what it's doing is it's reading back to my price list, reading, oh, this SKU code has this dollar value allowed for it. Therefore, when I import it into a costing, it's going to apply that pricing to it. So you can imagine we've got, half a dozen categories with some pricing allowed through here. If you went through and you had your full price book priced up with what your allowances are, for what you're paying on your items, what your stubby rates are, on importing a takeoff, it means that 70 to 80% of your job will be priced as you import that. What that does is it gives you a barrier of separation between not having to pass rates over to an external estimator or understand what somebody else's pricing is allowed. How does that match up with my pricing? Because we're breaking down the estimate or the takeoff into a detailed line item, and then we're applying your prices to it. So this is realistically, if your prices are up to date, what you'd be paying for it. So a couple of things to note in the costing section. We've got this little symbol here. When you hover over that, what that symbol means is that has found a matching SKU code item. And when you hover over it, it'll tell you what SKU code it's matched to and what item it's matched to find its pricing. So one thing I found is really good is that even if I look at, concrete supplier footings or I'll use this one as an example, there's no price allowed through here, but it's still found that I've got a SKU code matching in my price list. Now, because it's got a SKU code match in my price list, it means it's already set up to link, but I just haven't got a dollar value saved back in my price list. So I might use something different for an example. Maybe I'll use ducted AC for an example. So what I might come and do is edit this, and I go, well, I know what I'm going to do for the allowance is make it 10 grand per job allowance or 8 grand per job. When I've gone into edit costing, again, it's come through and it's told me, because it's green here, that it's locked to a price list item. Now, if I click on that item, it's going to come up and show me what price list it's drawing the price from, what category and what item, and it's kind of come in here. I can actually edit this from within the job, edit the price, update, and close. It's updated my costing on this job, but because I've updated it in the price list as well, that's going to go back to my price list and update that pricing for that item. So the next job that I do a takeoff on and make that allowance, I don't have to go back and do that on every job. It's going to update my database. So the idea being, if you set up your price book, even if it doesn't have the dollar value set up yet, when you work through a job, because sometimes for builders, it's easier to understand pricing in the context of a job rather than in the context of a massive database. You can actually be working through a whole job, and after you've updated pricing to go through the whole job, it'll update your prices. So the next job, when you import a takeoff like that, it's going to remember all those pricing for you. So it's effort on the first time to get lots of reward on the next time. Now, this first takeoff that I've showed you is based solely on materials and subcontractor labor. So we look at structural masonry, so block work and sundries, and lay per block rate to lay kind of thing. Now, if you're a builder that employs your own carpenters, and a lot of these tasks are done by your own employees, or you have your own employees on site to help with things while other subbies are doing it, stuff like that. What I've also discovered, and what I want to bring your attention to in the price list, is having a one SKU code item for in-house carpentry labor, which is basically the hourly rate you're going to charge your team out for at the estimating stage. So that's just one line item and one SKU code and one price. So I don't have to have a full database on every single task that my guy's going to do. It's one SKU code and one price item and one rate. So what I can do is then go back into estimations and go costing. Now I'm going to import a second file, and this one is going to be labor hours broken up. So again, what I want to show you guys, I'm going to open this up in Excel to show you the raw file first. It's a similar setup. We've got category, we've got the item or the task, we've got quantity, unit measure, and cost type. But the SKU code, notice the SKU code is all the same SKU code. It's not different SKU codes. So what happens when I go back to Wunderbuild and import that, I'm going to do the same thing. Match category to SKU code, costing item, no, quantity, unit measure, and cost type. When I import that, what it's going to do is going to add all these categories to the bottom here. But see how every single one of these items, it's priced, because even though it's brought in the item name from that takeoff that I brought in, so it hasn't overwritten the task name or the costing item, and it hasn't overwritten the quantity item, but it's drawn the pricing from the one SKU code there. So I can go through the whole item, the whole labor hour price list, and it's just used the one labor rate to price the whole thing. But what I've essentially done is built a task list with hours allowed for all the guys. I've also already pre-categorized the cost type as labor. So it means that when it converts to a job, if you're using this labor type, guys can come in and assign their timesheet hours to these tasks as well. So this is set up to suit the way that our categories work. Now, if you're a builder that has already got all of your costing categories set up and think, oh, it's a headache now, I'm going to have all this data everywhere and I want to move things around and it's not the same as mine and things like that, but I like the idea it's broken down. What I'm going to show you quickly is how inside the costing then to manage things to basically build the way you want to allow it. So say, for instance, I already had a costing category that's called concreting works total. And I'm just going to go concrete works and add that. So that's added that down to the bottom. I'm going to drag it all the way up to the top. So one great thing about Wunderbuild is you can drag and drop that in here. Because that's, if I already had categories set up in my template, that would already be at the start. What I want to do is basically go through and pick all this data from these things, and I want to just put it into my category name. So what I can do is go through, all right, so what I want to include in that is all the Rio. I want to include all the footing supply, slab supply. I want to include concrete pump, concrete labor, and I want to go down to my in-house labor charge and look at concrete works, footing stage, trenching, slab stage, concrete works. So I've got all these items here. Now I can click on this copy move to category, or copy to category, move to category. What it's done is it's grabbed all those items and it's moved them into my category. So now I can see all of those items I want to count to that one category, the pricing of that category all in there. So then what I can do is go through and go, okay, well, inside this category, have I got a reinforcing quote? So I don't need these price items. Okay, am I going to get the concreter to do it, who's working off his square meter rate and his strip footing rate? or my guy's going to do it, or am I going to make an allowance for the concreters rate plus some extra labour allowance for some of these tasks for my guys to be able to help on site. So moving it around means that you don't have to sit there and rethink and manually input stuff. All from within Wunderbuild, what we've been able to do is take a CSV that's takeoff only, that's matched with SKU codes in my price list. I've been able to build my price list in the context of a job, so then I can use from every step on. I've been able to understand where my price is coming from by seeing the prices broken up into categories. I've also then be able to move things around inside the costing overview with the click of a button instead of having to manually drag and drop things or manually type things in or punch things in or go back to takeoff. So that's kind of the overall of what I wanted to show how that works with the estimating of Wunderbuild. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about is how we at V2E come up with this data. So those takeoffs that I showed you on screen and how that works with Wunderbuild, that's what our takeoffs looks like. That's how we break things down. But where do we get that data from? Where do we measure things from? So we don't use the inbuilt takeoff in Wunderbuild. We don't use Bluebeam's PlanSwift or anything to sort of manually do things. What we do is we take all your sets of documents, so engineering, your plans, site surveys, interior finishes, electrical layouts, all that stuff, and we put it together in a working 3D construction model. What we're doing with that model is a couple of things. First thing is we're doing one of the biggest tasks and the biggest responsibilities that's put on you guys as a builder that really isn't up to you, but somehow all the liability gets put on you guys, which is putting everyone else's drawings through a QA process, because every person does their own drawings, but it's so hard to be able to make them all match in and overlay and make sure they're actually all going to work. So does the RFL that the architects picked work with the site contours, or does the retaining wall height that the engineers designed work with the site cut that we've worked with? So we're going to take all of those information and put them together in a model for you. What our model then does through software that we use is it's parametric, which means as we're drawing it in, it's doing a live takeoff. It's counting and it's measuring whatever we've drawn in. So as we're drawing timber wall frames, it's counting studs and it's counting linear meterage of timber. So that way, what we've done is we've built our software in the back end to be able to convert that into a usable builder's takeoff. So I've got a few samples up here on our portal of what it looks like. So this is an example of that job that I just imported. So you can see we've got the site in here. It sort of falls away at the front there. We're modeling in the temp fence, so that way we know how much linear meters of temp fence is coming in by drawing it in. We've got site bin and site toilet allowances, bit of block work, some cladding, things like that. But what I want to show you guys is what we've built into the portal is a way to be able to view items inside the model to relate back to the takeoff. So what that means you can do is A, check for potential construction issues. B, use this as a reference to check how we've come up with the takeoff, because we can visually see it as well. But also C, use this as a way to explain things to clients that maybe be technical things to explain to somebody that clients aren't going to be able to pick up if you're trying to explain them on an engineering document or on an architectural plan. So inside the portal, what we've got here is a few buttons down the bottom here. The first one is this cost codes button. If I click on this, what this is going to bring in is all these categories that are related in the takeoff, which I just showed you guys before. So for instance, if I want to come in and check where something is, so if I look at structural masonry, for example, so if I go to my costing and I've got structural masonry, so I've got block work and the sundries that go with it. If I want to see where in the model that block work is, I mean, it's pretty obvious on this one, but what I can do is come in here and click on structural masonry, and that's going to snap the model to only show me the items that relate to that. So I've got structural masonry there. What I can then do is open up the selection info button, and this gives me a bit of extra info for when I click on something. So if I click on that block wall, it's going to tell me what size block has been allowed for those walls. So you can then start layering things to sort of understand, well, I want to see what the job is going to look like when I've got the slab down and I've got all the wall frames and stuff built. So I might turn off my wraps. So now I can sort of see slabs, I can see footings, I can see structural masonry, and I can see all the framing. And using that selection info, I can do the same thing. I can click on any rafter, and it tells me what size and grade it is, any stud, pitch beam. I can click on any section of concrete to tell me what grade concrete's been allowed through there as well. And that all relates straight back to the takeoff. So linear meter and timber to seam there, where it goes, or block work, or number of pads, or cubic meter of concrete as well. What I can also then use is this ghost hidden button, which means I can turn off that projection of the house to get a better view. But having the projection button there means that you can sort of be checking, all right, is this going to work within the context of the house? Does the rafter poke through the roof? Does the rafter clash with the window? Are the footings going underground as much as they need to? Do we have enough of a site cut allowed for? So this job's a great example. When we look at earthworks, we've got, because we model in the site full and we model in the RFLs, we can work out with 3D the cubic meterage of total cut and total fill. So if I turn everything back on here, one of the key things that we notice on this job is you're going to have to cut this job out. But on the plans we worked on, there's no mention of a retaining wall anywhere. So I'm not sure how they're going to be able to hold all that fill back, but that's definitely a talking point that you can use to sort of go, hey, guys, I'm going to present this quote to you, but we've got an allowance for retaining wall in here, because what I want to show you is the engineer or the architect have missed that we're going to have to cut all this out, which means we're going to have some kind of retaining wall in here. So visually being able to show your client items that may be missed, items that may be high cost points that you might need to worry about, is going to make life so much easier for the customer when they can visually see it, rather than trying to understand a markup or a photo or understand an engineering document as well. So I just got some other samples that were shown you. This model, it took us a while to do this one because we worked from hand-drawn plans. I'm not sure how many of you guys still work from hand-drawn plans, but this is a lot easier to understand what's going on than hand-drawn plans. And again, being able to use the cost code button to understand cut and fill requirements, to be able to understand where retaining walls are going, to be able to understand where all the Rio is going into the job. So being able to see the sheet mesh, being able to see starter bars and L bars and vertical bars all throughout the job, all the Rio in the concrete staircases. Because our model is, and the way that we draw it in is, as we draw it, that's how the measurement comes out. And I just got a couple other little examples of renovations or extensions. So seeing how new sections are going to integrate with existing. Same here. So new ceiling and new ceiling framing being installed to this section of the existing, and then a new addition put on. One of the other things we've done in the portal is, with the selection info button, is when you click on things like hebel panels or cladding, that section of wall is going to tell me what size panels have been allowed through that wall. So for the full height walls there, we've got 3.3 panels, but for the short walls, we've got 2.4 panels. So again, you've got a takeoff of all the panels broken down. Now you've got a model to show you what walls have had what size panels been allowed through it there. Another example, just of different cladding types, timber versus metal. And then another example of an extension renovation going on to the existing. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you guys in Wunderbuild that you can do with this model is, when we go to costings, if I wanted to build out my quote proposal template or my specification a bit more with some images and things like that, what I can do through Wunderbuild is come in and add items to specifications. So I might want to add, concrete works to specification, but maybe I actually want to come in here and just add the one line item, and I'll make this, might change this unit measure to each across the job, say, and I'll update that. If I wanted to add that item specification, now when I go to specifications, that item's in here. I can go in and edit. I've got concrete work, so I know where it's linked from. I can put a description. This is the stub and footings of the job as per the engineering. Now, Wunderbuild gives me the ability to add an image to the specification as well. So what I could do is in here is come in and go, all right, I actually want to add the image of the footings and Rio and everything from the actual property. So I might hide that area, you turn that off. Now at the moment, you can just take manual screenshots, but we are building into the portal to be able to automatically get images out of this to go into Wunderbuild. But I'll just show you the process to come in here and we'll go start. Footings. Now if I go back to Wunderbuild, come in here, a photo, slab and footings, update. So now when I go to my preview, if I have specification turned on, which I'm pretty sure I did, I can actually be presenting to the client an image of their house, photo rendered, all the items, and you guys through Wunderbuild can control how much detail you show, costings, line items, all that kind of stuff. When I come through down to specifications, I've now got an image of the actual dwelling that we're talking about, footings and slab details there with the description there. So it's another way to personalize the quote for somebody by not just showing them generic images from Unsplash or Google or whatever kind of thing, or past projects. It's showing them actual images of their actual property themselves. So it's another way that you can help with sales, estimating, construction by using model, takeoffs, all the way using the costings, using your pricing data through Wunderbuild. So look, guys, that's all I wanted to sort of show in Wunderbuild today, to sort of talk you through that process. We're sort of near towards the end of the allotted time anyway. What I just wanted to do as well was put up on the screen where you can contact us if you want to know more. So you can go to our website, you can see some samples of some models and takeoffs. You can get in contact with the contact button or give us a call. But yeah, we are partnering with Wunderbuild. We're always working to improve more and more ways we can make life easier by using Wunderbuild. And really what we're saying, guys, is you guys can own your pricing and can improve and streamline the way you're estimating by understanding where your pricing comes from, which is those places we talked about at the start, how to manage it and interpret it by understanding how to hold your own price list in your old price book, how to streamline it by utilizing the SKU code function, the import takeoff button function, and then by understanding in more detail what your project costing is by applying your rates and your prices to a really broken down takeoff and a really broken down costing. So that's the end of the prezzo there for me, guys. So Camille, I might hand back to you on what you wanted to do next.
Yes. First, are there any questions? So Tom's here, and then also from our team, from the Wunderbuild team is here. If you have any questions, just say it, or you can type it in the chat box. Everything is clear? Seems like everything is clear since no one's speaking. So yeah, by the way, Tom, could you also send me please a copy of like the slide presentations?
Yep.
Because some of our clients are asking them, and also I'm going to send you guys the recording of today's webinar. So yeah.
Awesome.
Actually, Tom.
Yep.
Sorry, mate. John from Alcura Constructions.
No worries.
How about doing takeoffs on prelim plans, something that hasn't been engineered yet? So
Yep.
that's something that I get sent a lot. Obviously, because I need to get my estimating a little bit more spot on. So I'm just wondering, how detailed do you need the plans for that?
That's a great question, and it's one that we actually get asked often. So the way I like to look at it with prelim plans is basically understanding what data do you want to see from prelim plans that's going to help you get there. So I liken this to a couple of builders we use. What they do is when they get prelim plans, they say, here's what we're going to estimate on based on assumptions that to be confirmed of engineering. So understanding, look, we've got prelim plans that might be, because prelim plans can be as basic as just a floor plan with some notes about it's going to be this roof and it's going to be this ceiling height, things like that, right? So understanding, right, what we're going to do is we're going to work through this and we're going to break it down as much as we can with some assumption of going, what we're going to base it on is a slab of this thickness with this reo, with this footing set up, gridded at this centers. The benefit of having the 3D there, and because we're drawing it, is it's not just going to be, right, here's the square meter and here's the square meter of slab area. If you want to get it detailed at that prelim stage, the benefit is you're actually going to be able to visually see and show your client, we've based it on this footing setup, and I'm going to show you how the footings, we've drawn the footings in. Here's how deep we've allowed it. Here's the slab setup. We've allowed it at this rate, this ceiling height, all those kind of things. Because now you've got a visual guide to be able to show your client, to be able to back up how you've taken that off to be confirmed to engineering. So does that hopefully answer your question, John?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And yeah, it was just mainly around, I guess, the pricing as well.
Yep.
So obviously I don't have a spec list yet. I choose the cladding and roofing and windows and that type of thing. But yeah, I just didn't want to obviously send you a set of prelim plans and then, you know, you can't really do anything with it.
Right, that's cool. And look, to be honest, mate, if there's a set of plans, like I just had a couple of these meetings yesterday with a few guys as well. If there's a set of plans that's got some bit of clarity or they are prelim plans, like the best thing we'll do is let's jump on Google, let's jump on Zoom for 45 minutes and let's go through, let's build a bit of a, right, what we're going to do is we're going to allow this kind of thing, build a bit of a spec together. So that way our guys can come in and go, here's the plans, here's the information we're going to apply to these plans to produce our end result for you. So, yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Thomas.
No worries.
I have a bit of a question too. We're in a bit of a different position because we're a design and build firm, as well as a prefabricated firm. I guess if we were to send you some drawings, we run on a plywood rich system, so it's a bit different. Is that something you'd still be interested in kind of working through, or is it kind of like stick and frame mostly?
Nah, so the prefabricated stuff is cool. I mean, one of the benefits of the software that we use is its full BIM capabilities. That's how it gets the details out. So we've got a guy who works for us, Sean. He's a wizard with that kind of stuff. So if you said to me, here's a product and this is how we need the results to come out and this is everything we need to be included, I'll just give it to him and say, here you go, mate, plug this in and make sure it works. So it's not me that's doing it. But the reality is the software we use, because it has custom BIM capabilities, we always like to use the example of if you wanted a case of beer allowed on every contract, we could draw a box, make it look like super dry, give it all the data inside. And so every time our guys drew that box of beer in the model, it would add a box of beer to the takeoff kind of thing. So there's no real limit to it. What it is key for us is we want to be involved with you guys to understand what you need. So that way we can give you the right data, because it's a bit like kind of similar answer to what question you were asking John before, is going with some of that stuff that's maybe a bit uncommon, or that's there's a big ambiguity on the plans and stuff like that. It's all about understanding what information you need. Then we can do the work to get you that information kind of thing.
Right. Thank you.
No, cool. Cool.
All right. Anyone else? Questions? Emma's also answering some questions on the chat. And so, yep, Tom already gave you the contact details if you want to reach out to Vision to Estimating.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much for having me, Camille. Thanks to Wunderbuild. I hope everybody's lead up into Christmas is manageable. Take a break over Christmas as well. But yeah, please feel free to contact us. Even just if you want to have a chat about what we're showing, learn more, happy to do some one-on-one prezos, things like that. And yeah, we'll be having more and more, like I said, we're partnering more and more with Wunderbuild to be able to improve the systems and add more things. We've got stuff working in with the price book. We're going to be able to build into an online portal that you guys can access updates and things like that to be able to have those coded data and stuff like that. So any of those updates, we'll be sure to pass those things on to you and then go from there. Emma, are you asking a question? Is that why you put your hand up?
Craig has a question.
Yes, yeah, I just wanted you to answer that question from Craig.
Oh, yeah, to Connie's base. Yeah, Yeah, 100% great. So yeah, architectural homes, if you haven't got the rates or whatever, we can basically just do the quantities based on the finished specs. So I like to use like tiles as an example. Is the way we normally break up tiles is that if we have a spec being given to us, you're going to break up, here's the total of each tile type. So here's the total of TL1, TL2, TL3. But then also here is the total coverage of wall in the laundry, wall in the ensuite, floor in the laundry. And the best way is you're going to be able to visually see it in the model. But the short answer is that, yeah, if you haven't got the pricings, but you want the quantity to then you guys be able to use, that's exactly what we can do, mate. So hopefully that answers that as well. Hughes just asked a question. It says SKU codes for each builder. Yep. No, so that database I showed you in the prices, that is fully set up. We can offer that to you guys as a bit of a like one-off setup fee. So that way it's already coded, it's already categorized, ready to import into Wunderbuild. What we do for you guys is we can also help personalize it. So I think the sample I showed you guys, the SKU codes had the number and they all have V2E at the front of it. What we do for you guys is personalize that V2E code so it would be suited to your own. So if your building company was ABC Builders, it would be ABC and then the number. So basically what you're getting from us built is the database pre-coded and categorized to put into Wunderbuild that's personalized to your business. That way it's ready for you guys to be able to start putting prices to, or when the first job comes in, is ready to be able to work through and then update as you work through. The idea with it being a one-off setup fee is that once you get that started, anytime we do an update because a new product's come out, so we've got new items to add to it, or we've had a change or we've done something, we pass them on to you guys and it's not an ongoing recurring fee from there. So hopefully that answers that question for you, Hugh, as well.